Alright, so this is Will, and we're finally going to start taking a look at what we're going to do for the HMI. And we're going to start adding some, at this point, just HMI symbols. And, you know, what we have is we have a motor up here, and we're going to have a motor up here and I guess a motor down here. We'll have limits up here and limits down here. We'll have to show something that simulates a door. We'll have our open and close push buttons. Now we also have a start, stop, and reset push button, and we have this fault inject. Those are our inputs. And right now we'll kind of have, not instead of our stack lamps, but we'll have lamps that'll maybe not blink, but they'll indicate when there's a fault. They'll indicate when doors going up or down. There'll be something that'll indicate you know, we have that door jar thing. But let's take a look in our actual PLC program and take a look. So we've got start, stop, and we'll have some light. And, you know, we put this in all our programs, but really it's not too functional for the garage door open. But we'll put our start, stop, and reset, and we'll kind of make it almost look like it is on the control panel. These other things we can forget about. We are going to have these motor up and motor downs. Those are what we're going to associate with the symbol that we have. The stop door pulse will have a light that says that when it's ajar. Now, for these things, we don't need anything on our screen in the final configuration that's going to show us what the timer is doing. We just want to see the door go up or down. But while we're troubleshooting, it's always a good idea to put these on the screen so we can see what's happening, so we know it's counting. We know it's timing, we know it's counting, and so we have a good feel of what's going on. Here we'll have a button for the fault reset as well as the fault inject signal. And yeah, we'll have this counter for the door cycle, I guess. And really, we'll have lights that'll tell us, you know, we aren't going to really blink, but we'll have a light, a solid indicator for if it's ajar. We'll have a solid one that'll tell us, well, we'll have the system off will be with our start process light. And then we'll have the green, we'll have a up and down, and then we'll have the door ajar, and we'll have something else that'll be a system fault. So those will kind of be individual indicators. You know, what we do with the stack light is we kind of have a multitask with whether they're blinking or not blinking. So I'm going to go out of here and I'm going to start up my Wonderware. And we're going to just start up in a program. And here's what you get. Now, again, the first thing that we're going to do, this starts out in a program that was on here, the last program that was on there. You want to make sure, unless you're doing the last program, that you create a new program. So I am going to call this, I don't know, NSF Final Garage Project. And I'm also going, I usually leave everything as defaults, but I'm going to put this on my desktop, because that's really where I want to put it. So I'm going to put that on my desktop so I can easily find it. Well, my desktop's pretty messy, so it might not easily be found, but we'll find it somehow. So I'm okay there, and everything else I kind of leave as defaults. So I'm going to leave that as default. And it takes a few seconds for the you know, the project window to open up. But the first thing is I'm going to left click on screens, and then I'm going to insert a screen. So you left click and then insert. I'm just going to call this main for the time being, my main screen. And I might and I'm not sure what the reason is, but I've seen where they copy it and put it down for the title bar information down here. Don't know what that does for you, but I'm just do it because I don't know, I saw that. So the first thing I always do is put some text, and I'm going to make this main screen. Then I'm going to change the size of it so I can left click to highlight, and then right click, get into properties, going into fonts. I'll make it bigger and bolder, and that's right for us. I'll probably change it to something other than main screen. But the other thing we do all the time when we get in here first thing, and I'm not sure why I've got the webcam up here, but we'll keep it up there at least for the time being. But I need to go in here and graphics. You know, graphics is the tab that we're going to do most of the creation on this screen. So what we do, the first thing is we go into button and we put our exit button. And again, the exit button is the button that allows us to go between the editor and also the run screen. And the run screen pretty much occupies the whole screen, the whole part of your screen, so you have to have an exit button to get back there. So we're going to make it big and red so it's obvious. And I want to also go in here and I have to put in a command. And this takes a VB script, which they all start out with a $sign and then it's shut down. And I'll just click on that, and now it's open and close parenthesis, and that's it. So this will get me from the run screen back into my editor screen. Now there are other ways to do it, but none of them are too particularly easy. So I'll just well, and now what I need to do is I need to save it. Always make, and anytime you X out, it'll ask you, do you want to save it? And yes, save it. Because we only have a couple things on here, but if we had a whole bunch and we forgot to save it, we'd have lost all that information. And actually it kind of looks like we have lost that information, but now we have a pull down over here for our screens, and we can just pick the main screen, and now we got the main screen back. So let's take a look at some of the graphics that we might want to use. So in here there's symbols, and you know, they've got a whole bunch of system symbols. Now, right now, we have nothing in our project, so there's no project symbols. So let's see what we might want to use. So right now, well, we know one thing. We want to have some type of up-down for our motors. So I don't want a great, well, I can always resize my motor if I want. But at least for right now, I think, because we don't want one obnoxiously large, I think what I'll do is I'll just pick one of these guys, and we can always change it afterwards. And we can go in here and, you know, we can right click on it, go to properties, and we can change the link size. So if we want them a little bigger, which I'm thinking maybe I do, I can make them like that. If I want one, so this will be the motor that will be green when it's going up the garage door, and I'll copy them for a motor for my down motor. Now I probably also want these guys to the right on my screen, so I'm going to move them over this ways, and this webcam probably going to have to go in the, well, I'll put him over here in the project view, so he'll be out of our way at least for the time being. And so a couple of things that I know I'm going to put in here is I'm going to my graphics, and I'm going to have push buttons for my screen over here. I'm going to have my start, stop, and reset over here. So I'm going to make those all push buttons. So I'm going to put push buttons over here. This will be my start. And we can kind of change him. I'm going to say this is going to be my HMI start. And eventually we're going to have to go into our program, and we're going to have to change the PLC program so the start for the HMI is in parallel with the you know, the control over here, push button start. So it's asking me, do we want to create this tag? Yes, and they're all going to be bools for the time being. And I can go into the configuration. I'm going to say this is my start PB, and over here I'll just say pressed, and I'll give it an off color so we know it's been pressed. So I always give it a grayish color. And well, I think also when I do these, I know that I need to bump up the size of the font. So I'll make it a little bigger and a little bolder, and that's okay. And then I'll change it here, make it bigger and bolder, and say that's okay. And we should be okay. So let's see what our start push button looks like. And I'll just copy him, and this will be my stop push button. And all I have to do is change the name. And right now I'm not going to worry about the tags. I'm just going to put placeholders on here. So I'm okay with that. And we need to create all these. Again, it'll be bools. And the only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the name from start to stop. And I'm going to change the color from green to red. And now I'm going to copy him and make a little reset over here. And again, it's just change the name and change the color. So it's pretty quick after you get going in here. So got to create that, and it'll be a bool. Okay. And the configuration, I'm going to make him, want him in neutral color. I think I'll make him deep blue. See what that looks like. So now I've got these indicators, and I'll move these down just a bit. And now what I need to do, and now would be a good time, I want to put a little lamp that tells me when power is on here. And I also want some lamps that I'm going to have, whether the door is in the up position, the down position, or if it's in the ajar position. So I'll go into my graphics, and I want to go into symbols. Now I want some pilot lights. And for this, for my start process, I definitely want a green push button, so, or I mean lamp, so I'm going to put them here. Again, you get the gigantic lamp in here, so I'll right click and say properties, and I don't want to use that link size. So now I'll just pare him down and put him kind of over all the over controls. And now I'll go in here and I'll give him a tag name, and this will be now this is the tag name from the PLC. This is the start process that we always use in our PLC, and we got to create that one too. And that, you know, all these will eventually wind up in the PLC, but these are ones that are created from the HMI. This is one that's coming from, so these are signals that are going from HMI to the PLC. This is coming from the PLC to the HMI for display. Now for these guys, I'll say this is my up motor. So my tag associated with this guy, I'm going to make him my motor up, I think is what we called it in the PLC. So I'll call him motor up. And again, that's an invalid name because we have to have a single word. So everything has to have an underscore or be a single word. So motor up. And we want to create that. Yep, that'll be a bool. And we'll do the same down here, and this will be my motor down. And I'll just call that DN. And that'll be a bool. And now let's see. Over here I'm going to have a little bit of controls, and I'm going to, well, I'm going to copy this green lamp over here. So I'm going to hold down the control and move them over here. Now for these, I'm going to have one for when he's in the up position, in the down position, and then when it's in the ajar position. So I'm going to use, well, we said going up was going to be green, so maybe I'll say when it's fully at the up position, which I don't really have a tag. Well, yeah, we have the tag that says it's the closed limit switch. Now they don't have to have the same names, but I am going to say this one, I'm going to just say door up. And again, I didn't make that all one word, so let's try this again. Door underscore up. And that'll be okay. And yep, and well, for the time being we'll just make him green too, and we'll call this one door down. So this be and we'll say okay there, yep, and that'll be a bool. And we need one more, and for the door ajar, I'm going to go back into the let's see, graphics. I'm going into my symbols, and I'll grab a blue one. I want some neutral color, and I'm going to have to resize him quite a bit too. So I'm going to not use that link size. I'm going to say, right now I'm also going to put in the tag name, and we called that door ajar. And we'll create that, and he's a bool. Yes, bool. And we'll try to get him the same size as the other guys. And we'll put him right there. So these will be when they're in the up position or the down position. Now we're kind of running a little late on time. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to put in what I'm going to make for my door. And I'll make it a thinner door. And I don't know, for right now, I guess I'll fill it with I don't know, maybe something that looks a little more like wood. Maybe a lighter wood. Okay, that'll work fine, and I think, yeah, that'll be okay. So now what I'm going to do, we're going to have this animation. We're going to have the door go up. So what we need on top here is I'm just going to put a rectangle on the top here. And I'm going to make this the same as our background color. And actually I'm going to put that to right where the door begins. So I'm going to move my up motor down a little bit. And I'm going to make this guy the same as my background, which right now I have a white background. And I'm going to say the border, I'm going to have none. So now, we can kind of see it on here in the grid, but when we go into the run, it's going to be the exact same color as the background. So when the door moves up, and also I'm going to select this guy, and I am going to send him to the back. So now when he goes up, he'll be behind this thing, so it'll really, you won't see it at all. So as it's going up, it appears that the door is, kind of disappearing. And that's kind of what we're going, this isn't going to be the greatest simulation, but it's kind of show you what we would do with this. So that's what we're going to intend to do when we get to that point. So it'll move up behind that. And we'll have to associate this with the actual counter. The counter, well, probably the timer that counts from, no, this is going to associate with the counter that runs from 0 to 120. So in the state that we see it now is when the counter is at 0. It's fully shut. And then as it counts up to 120, we're going to have this door animate up, and it'll, disappear behind this blank little void. So, I think, well, one last thing I'm going to put on here, and that'll get us at about 20 minutes. So I'm going into the graphics. I'm going into my symbols. Now I'm going into indicators, and we want to put that counter in here. So this is going to be our cycle counter, and what we're going to do is we need to edit this symbol, and it's too large. So we can click on it, right click on it, go to Properties, go into Caption, and go into Fonts. And what happens here is the font is size 6-0, and we probably want a size 16. So I'm going to say OK, and now this gets you a lot smaller size font, so I'm going to make this smaller, and I like it so it shows at about, just saying format is usually about the size I think I want. So as usual, if I X out of here, it'll say, do you want to save it? Yep. And then it gives you this, and whatever it means, I just hit OK. And now we have our counter. And I might put the counter, I might put it over here so we can count our cycles. And so we've got these start, stop, we've got our motor up and down, we've got the indicators that tell us the state. Now, we do have to show some little limit sensors when it is up or down, but those will sort of correspond with these guys. So let's just take a quick little look, and this will be it for this video, but take a look at what it looks like right now. And this will be in the actual run. And so this looks pretty good, because we want to do is, and this is just running out by itself, and that's what's happening with these things blinking on their own. But we kind of want to use most of the screen. We'll probably end up going a little bit to the left with the door. We're okay here because we're going to have text on this side. So we might, and we're probably okay here. We'll maybe move this counter over above these symbols over here too. But you know, that's what we're going to start with, and next time out we'll start actually trying to you know, clean this up, put all of our sensors. Like, the only thing I know we need is that we need something that's going to be the sensor that shows when it's open or when it's closed, and then we need a push button, and a push button to inject a fault, and then a push button to reset that fault. And then we'll probably also put a push button to reset this counter. When we have the, and while I'm just looking at it, I'm going to clean this up. This is my OCD working, but for this push button, we're okay there, but I need to call it a reset push button. So we'll call it reset, and now that looks a little more correct. And we'll leave this video, the start video, for our HMI at this point. So we'll come back next time and we'll get a lot closer to what we're trying to do. We'll probably try to tie it into the PLC and at least take a look at the very basics of how it looks. You know, when you're doing the HMI, and especially doing the visualization, it takes a lot of trial and error to get it looking, you know, perfect, and we're not going to spend all that time, but we'll show you just the basics for how to get it running. So we'll see you next time. Thanks.